My name is Jessica, and I'm 35 years old. If you had told me a year ago that I would be struck by my own mother at my sister's wedding, in front of guests, cameras, and chandeliers, I wouldn't have believed you. But maybe I should have. Because when you grow up being invisible, you learn early on that love can have conditions. And mine always came with silence. I was the eldest daughter, the one who followed the rules, brought home good grades, and never needed extra attention. I was the one who always waited to be noticed, thinking maybe one day someone would turn and say, "We're proud of you, Jessica." But they never did, because all the attention was already taken by Olivia, my younger sister. Growing up, Olivia was the sun in my mother's world. She didn't just receive love, she absorbed it like oxygen, leaving none for the rest of us. When Olivia cried, the earth stopped spinning. When she smiled, my mother, Amanda, smiled bigger. I remember once breaking my wrist during school sports. I walked into the house crying softly. But all I got was, "Olivia had a long day too, Jessica. Don't be dramatic." That was Amanda's favorite line. Don't be dramatic. It was her way of minimizing me, boxing me up, keeping me small, while Olivia got all the room to shine. As I grew older, I learned to stay in the background. I focused on work, on stability, on building a life without chaos. I never expected much from my family, but deep inside, a small voice always hoped they'd someday see me. And maybe, just maybe, Olivia's wedding was my chance. A big, formal event. Fancy venue. All family present. I didn't want attention. I just wanted to be treated like I belonged. I spent hours preparing. Chose a wine-colored dress, elegant, modest, perfect for an outdoor lakeview wedding. My hair was done up neatly, my makeup natural. I looked in the mirror and told myself, this time, you'll walk in with your head held high. I had no idea that what awaited me wasn't respect, but another reminder of how little I mattered. The wedding venue was the kind you'd see in a glossy bridal magazine, a lakeside resort in Silver Grove, known for its sparkling fountains, hanging floral chandeliers, and glass-ceiling banquet halls that caught every ounce of daylight. It was the kind of place that whispered wealth in every corner, the kind of place where perfection was expected. As my car rolled through the grand iron gates, I stared out the window, my heart pounding. I had told myself to be calm, to be composed. This wasn't about me. This was Olivia's day, and I would play the role they'd always given me, the background sister with a polite smile. A valet opened the door, giving me a professional nod. I stepped out slowly, smoothing the soft folds of my dress. It was deep burgundy, not flashy, not loud, just like me. I clutched my small purse and walked toward the entrance with quiet confidence. Just as I reached the front lobby, the double glass doors of the main hall gleaming ahead, I heard a familiar voice, sharp and clipped. Jessica. I turned, and there she was, Amanda, my mother. Not Mom, not Mama, not anything warm. Just Amanda, the woman who had spent my entire life reminding me, in small and large ways, that I was an accessory in her story. She stood in a pale silver dress, hair twisted into a polished bun, pearl earrings catching the light. Beside her, a young receptionist glanced between us, holding a clipboard and looking slightly uncomfortable. "You're not seated in the main hall," Amanda said quickly, waving her hand toward the side corridor. "There's a table by the coat check. We had to reorganize a few things last minute." I blinked. "What do you mean? You're seating me outside the hall." "It's not outside. It's just near the hallway. There wasn't enough space inside." I walked up slowly and looked at the seating chart myself, a large, elegant board written in gold cursive. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, my father, were seated right next to Olivia at the head table. Her friends, her fiancé's co-workers, even distant cousins had reserved seats under chandeliers and floral arches. But me? Table H, hallway corner. By the coat rack. "Amanda," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice from shaking, "I'm your daughter." "Exactly," she replied, lowering her voice. "You've always been independent. You don't care about these things." I had to prioritize close family. The hypocrisy burned, but I smiled a thin, bitter smile and nodded. "Of course. Because I've never been close family, have I? She rolled her eyes, annoyed now that I wasn't playing my usual obedient role. Don't make a scene. You're already lucky we invited you. That line hit harder than I expected. Invited. As if I were a guest at my own sister's wedding, not family. A few early guests passed by, pretending not to notice the tension. Amanda turned her face and gave them a bright, fake smile. Fine, she whispered through clenched teeth. Come inside. Just don't cause any drama. And that was it. I wasn't welcomed inside. I was permitted, like a reluctant exception to her perfect picture. As I walked through the marble-floored entrance into the main hall, chandeliers glittering overhead and soft classical music playing, I realized something. This day wasn't going to be about celebration. It was going to be about survival. The inside of the banquet hall was like walking into a curated dream. Ivory drapes hung from high ceilings, the scent of fresh peonies drifted from every table, and the crystal glasses caught light in all directions. Everyone looked polished,
Happy.
unbothered. I stepped in silently, trying to blend into the crowd. I didn't expect hugs or warm greetings. I didn't even expect Olivia to acknowledge me. But I had hoped, just a little, that Amanda would leave me alone now that I was out of the hallway. That I could sit quietly, eat a polite dinner, and leave before the dancing started.
But no.
That's not how people like Amanda work. I was barely halfway to the drinks table when I heard her voice again, louder this time, coated in fake sweetness that instantly made my stomach knot. Jessica, sweetheart. A quick word. Heads turned. Some smiled, not realizing what was coming. Others, those who knew Amanda well, watched with quiet anticipation. Something about her voice told them this wouldn't be a loving family moment. I forced a smile and turned toward her. Yes. Amanda took my hand like we were old friends and led me to the front of the room, near the beautifully decorated wedding cake table, surrounded by cascading white roses and gold-trimmed place settings. Now that you're settled, she said, her voice cheerful but eyes cold, we can talk about the wedding expenses. I frowned. What expenses? Oh, you know everything. The florals were $3,500. The musicians were $2,000. The dress fittings, lighting, table decor, catering, that alone was $6,000. The final total comes to about $14,600. I stood there, blinking, unsure where this was going. And Amanda's smile tightened. And you'll be covering it. I let out a breathless laugh, half thinking I'd misunderstood her. Excuse me? You're doing well, aren't you? She said, louder now so that a few people nearby clearly overheard. You're single. No kids. You live alone, make good money. And Olivia has so much starting up with Patrick. It just makes sense. I could feel the tension in the air as a few heads subtly turned toward us. Her words weren't just meant for me, they were meant to shame me, to expose me as selfish if I refused. This wasn't a private conversation. It was a setup. You're asking me to pay $14,600 for a wedding where I was nearly seated in the hallway? Amanda's smile dropped. Don't act like a victim, Jessica. We all sacrifice for family. No, I said firmly. You sacrificed me for years. You made me invisible. You humiliated me in front of my coworkers at Olivia's graduation. You ignored my birthday 2 years in a row while throwing spa weekends for her. And now you want me to pay for the privilege of being tolerated? Amanda's face twitched. For a second, I saw the mask slip, and what lay beneath was pure, seething rage. You ungrateful little. She stopped herself, her hands balling into fists. I turned to walk away, heart racing, done with the scene, done with being made a puppet for everyone else's comfort. But before I could take a single step, she grabbed the crystal wine bottle off the serving table and swung. It hit me square on the side of my forehead. There was no warning, no time to block or duck. Just the crack of glass against bone, the stunned gasps from the guests, and the violent ringing in my ears. Pain flared immediately. My knees gave out. I collapsed to the floor, a rush of heat and cold washing over me. My hand instinctively went to my temple and came away wet, dark red. "Oh my God," someone shouted. "She's bleeding." A woman near the cake screamed. Did Amanda just call 911? Somebody help her. The last thing I saw before everything blurred was Amanda, standing still, gripping the broken neck of the wine bottle in her hand, her face frozen, not with guilt, but with the horrifying realization that people had seen everything. The sound of my heartbeat throbbed in my ears louder than the classical music still playing in the background. I was on the cold, polished floor, the metallic scent of blood thick in my nose. Somewhere in the blur of voices and footsteps, I could hear people gasping, phones dialing, someone crying. And then, "We need help. She's bleeding. She needs help now." I blinked up at the spinning ceiling lights, trying to stay conscious. A pair of heels clicked frantically nearby, then stopped. A man's voice, firm and trained, broke through the chaos. "This is Peter, venue manager. I need police and paramedics at Silver Grove Lake Resort, main banquet hall. A guest has been assaulted, struck on the head with a wine bottle. The suspect is still on site."
Peter.
He was the one who saw it all. His voice was like an anchor in a spinning room. I could hear Amanda trying to speak to him, her voice trembling with false innocence. It wasn't what it looked like. She was yelling. She came at me. "Save it," Peter snapped. The cameras caught everything. I tried to sit up but winced in pain as a sharp sting shot through my head. My fingers were sticky with blood. Guests stood in stunned silence. Some were holding hands to their mouths. Others were staring at Amanda in disbelief, like they were just now seeing her for the first time. And then, a sudden rush of voices came from the entrance.
Police.
And paramedics. 2 officers, both in full uniform, entered with purpose, Officer Carter leading the way. Behind them, 2 medics wheeled in a stretcher, but when they saw me, one of them came running with a first aid kit while the other began clearing the area. "Ma'am, stay still," one medic said gently, kneeling beside me. "You're bleeding from the temple. Do you know your name?" "Jessica," I whispered. I don't want to go to the hospital. Just patch it. Let me take a look first." He carefully checked the gash, cleaned the area with cool antiseptic, then applied gauze and bandages. It hurt.
Badly.
But it was manageable. "It's a clean laceration. No fracture. You're lucky, but you'll have a headache and some swelling. You're stable enough to stay, but no stress. No more shocks tonight." I let out a breathless laugh. Too late for that. Meanwhile, Officer Carter turned toward Amanda, who stood stiffly, hands clenched, her eyes darting around the room. "Ma'am, are you the one who struck the victim?" Amanda opened her mouth, but Peter stepped forward, holding his phone out. "She did it, right in front of all of us. I've got security footage. It's all here." The officer nodded. "That's more than enough." He turned back to Amanda. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for assault with a deadly object. You have the right to remain silent." Gasps rose again from the guests. Amanda's face turned white as the officer stepped forward, pulling her arms behind her back and cuffing her. "Wait, I'm her mother," she cried. "I didn't mean. This is my daughter." "Exactly," I muttered. "And you still hit me." The guests stepped away as Amanda was escorted out, her silver heels clicking hollowly across the marble floor. A few tried to avoid her gaze. Others whispered behind hands. Her power, her image was gone. She didn't look back at me, and for the first time, I didn't want her to. I looked up at Peter and Officer Carter. "Thank you," I whispered. Peter nodded, his voice calm and certain. "You didn't deserve that. And now everyone knows it." And for the first time in my life, they did. As Amanda was led out of the hall in handcuffs, a ripple of stunned silence followed her. The clinking of glasses stopped. The music faded. Even the chandeliers seemed to lose their shine. The perfect wedding Olivia had dreamed of, the one Amanda had orchestrated to a T, was unraveling, and fast. I sat near the back of the hall, a cold compress now pressed gently against the side of my head. My dress was wrinkled, my hair messy, and a faint trail of dried blood marked the side of my cheek. But despite the discomfort, I sat tall. I had never felt more seen. Across the hall, Olivia stood frozen, a glass of champagne still in her hand. Her veil had slipped slightly off-center, and her carefully lined lips were parted in disbelief. She was staring at the exit Amanda had just been dragged through, not in sorrow, but in shock. Not because her mother had hit me, but because it happened in front of everyone. Her fiancé, Patrick, emerged from the groom's suite, confused by the whispering, the staring, the tension. He rushed forward and approached one of the guests. "What happened?" The guest hesitated, then leaned in. "Your mother-in-law just hit her older daughter with a wine bottle in front of everyone." Patrick's brows furrowed as he looked around and spotted me sitting by the wall, the paramedic still beside me. His expression shifted from confusion to concern in an instant, and he walked straight over. "Jessica, are you okay?" I looked up.
Physically, yes.
Mentally? That's still being decided. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." His voice trailed off as he looked at the bandage, the blood on my sleeve. "She did that to you?" I nodded, because I wouldn't give her $14,000. His face hardened. Just then, Susan, Patrick's mother, walked over quickly. She looked like she had just arrived from a nearby lounge, her face tense. She went straight to Patrick and quietly pulled out her phone. "We need to talk. In private."
"Now?" Patrick asked, still looking at me. "Yes."
"Now." They stepped a few feet away, near the glass windows. I didn't hear what she said, but I saw Patrick's expression shift as he read something on her phone. First came disbelief, then horror, then something else, betrayal. He looked up slowly, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Olivia. He didn't wait. He walked straight toward her, phone in hand. "Olivia," he said, voice calm but sharp. "Can we talk?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Baby, I know this day's been crazy, but I promise I had nothing to do with." "Save it." The smile vanished. "What are you talking about?" Patrick raised the phone and held it between them. "Your stylist's assistant accidentally forwarded her chat backup to my mother's account. All of it. The messages where you said you were training me like a puppy. The part where you said once we were married, you'd slowly make me dependent. The one where you said, and I quote, 'If I play sweet with Susan, that lake house will be mine by summer.'" Olivia's face turned pale. "Those were jokes," she whispered. "Just harmless stuff between friends." "Then explain this one," he said, scrolling. "In 6 months, I'll have everything in my name. He's so easy to manage. I'll cry if I have to. That always works." Now, everyone in the hall was staring. Whispers filled the air like static. Olivia turned, desperate now. "You don't believe her, do you? Jessica's been poisoning everyone against me." Patrick stepped back.
"No."
"Jessica's been surviving in silence for years.
I see that now.
And I won't be part of a family that abuses and manipulates." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a crisp white envelope. He held it out, not to Olivia, but to one of the bridesmaids. "Annulment papers."
"Signed."
"Ready." Gasps spread across the hall. Olivia stood alone beneath the arch she had so carefully curated, the veil slipping off her shoulder, her hands shaking. "You can't do this," she whispered. "You love me. You said." "I loved who I thought you were," Patrick replied. "But that person doesn't exist." He turned and walked away. The silence that followed was so heavy, it nearly bent the air. The room didn't explode. It didn't burst into arguments or hysteria. It simply cracked, quietly, irreversibly. Olivia remained rooted beneath the wedding arch, surrounded by glittering flowers and soft candlelight. But everything around her now felt like a lie, and everyone saw it. The woman who had been the center of Amanda's universe, the sister who had always stood in the spotlight while I stood in the shadows, was now completely alone. She turned toward the crowd, mascara streaked, her lips trembling. "You're all just standing there?" she cried out. "You've known me my whole life. You know I didn't mean any of this." A few guests lowered their heads. Others turned away. Even her bridesmaids, the ones who had once laughed at her jokes and adjusted her veil, stood frozen, unable to meet her eyes. "This isn't fair," she screamed. "Jessica planned this. She ruined my wedding." I slowly stood up, steadied by the paramedic, and took a few steps forward. My head still ached, but my voice was strong. "You ruined it yourself, Olivia. Just like Mom did." I didn't say a word all these years. I stayed quiet when she ignored me. I stayed quiet when you mocked me. I even stayed quiet when I was nearly seated outside your wedding. I paused, locking eyes with her. "But I won't stay quiet anymore." She opened her mouth again, but no one was listening now. Her voice had lost its power. Her audience was gone. And for the first time, I wasn't the one in the background. Underscore 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 underscore. By the following morning, Olivia's social media accounts were deactivated. Mutual friends left our group chats. Cousins who once laughed at her sarcasm quietly cut ties. Even Thomas, our father, stopped returning her calls. The fallout wasn't loud, it was surgical.
And Amanda?
She had already been charged and taken into custody after the attack. But that wasn't enough. It wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. So, with the support of Peter, the venue manager, Patrick, Susan, and even Officer Carter, I filed a formal criminal case against my mother. The case included full security camera footage of the attack, the medical report from paramedics on the scene, witness statements from guests and venue staff, text messages showing Amanda had tried to blame me afterwards. My attorney told me this was one of the most straightforward assault cases she'd ever seen. Still, when the court summons was delivered to Amanda in custody, part of me expected her to write a letter, to apologize, to say, just once, that she had failed me. But that letter never came. She stayed silent. And maybe that was her truest form of honesty. The day of the court hearing arrived under gray skies and a quiet breeze. I stood on the courthouse steps in a navy blue blouse and slacks. Nothing flashy, just calm, clean, and strong. Not to impress anyone. Not to earn anyone's approval, just to finally be seen as someone who deserved justice. Patrick stood beside me, holding my hand gently but firmly. He didn't ask if I was nervous. He didn't tell me to be brave. He knew I already was. Inside the courtroom, Amanda sat across from me in a defendant's chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She wore a simple beige suit. Her hair was no longer styled. Her nails no longer polished. She looked small, not weak, but exposed. And still, even now, she couldn't meet my eyes. Judge Walker reviewed the evidence silently for a few minutes, flipping through a folder filled with printouts, photographs, security footage stills, and the written medical evaluation. Then he spoke. "We are here today regarding the case of physical assault committed by the defendant, Amanda, against the victim, Jessica, her own daughter, during a public event. The evidence submitted includes clear surveillance video showing the defendant striking the victim in the head with a crystal wine bottle, causing visible injury and public disturbance. Paramedic reports confirm this injury, and multiple witnesses have given consistent statements." He paused and looked directly at Amanda. "This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate, emotional, and public. You didn't just commit violence. You tried to humiliate your daughter in front of others as a form of control." Amanda remained silent. She didn't even flinch. Considering the severity of the act, the relationship between the parties, and the lack of remorse shown by the defendant, the judge's tone deepened. This court sentences Amanda to 5 years in state prison, with no possibility of early parole. There was no gasp, no outburst, just the sound of a life breaking in half. Amanda didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just stood when the bailiff approached and let herself be escorted out the same way she had left the wedding, cold, silent, and alone. I didn't look away. This time, she had no power over me. Afterward, I stepped outside into the soft sunlight. Patrick followed. We stood in quiet for a moment, breathing in the freedom. "It's done," I whispered. Finally done. He nodded. And you didn't just survive it. You owned it. I turned toward him and smiled, genuinely, for the first time in what felt like years. Then Patrick pulled a small velvet box from his coat pocket and held it out, slowly opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Jessica, he said softly, I've seen you break and rebuild. I've seen your truth, and I've never respected anyone more. I don't want to fix you, because you don't need fixing. I just want to be beside you from here forward. Will you marry me? I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I smiled, a full, radiant smile.
Yes.
1,000 times yes. Our wedding wasn't televised. It didn't trend on social media. No one compared the floral arrangements to magazine covers, and there were no rows of bridesmaids in matching gowns. But it was perfect. We chose a quiet botanical garden just outside Silver Grove, surrounded by blooming lavender, slow-falling sunlight, and only the people who had truly stood by us. Patrick wore a classic gray suit, his smile as steady as the vows he whispered to me. I wore a soft ivory dress, not extravagant, but it made me feel like I had stepped into the version of myself I had waited my entire life to become. Susan, Patrick's mother, sat in the front row with tears in her eyes, tears of joy. Peter, the venue manager who once stood between chaos and justice, gave a small toast at our dinner. Even Officer Carter sent a handwritten card wishing us peace and strength. As we exchanged vows, I didn't speak of fairy tales or forever promises. I said simply, for the first time in my life, I feel safe being seen. We didn't honeymoon on an island. We took a quiet drive up the coast, stayed in a rented cottage, and spent our evenings walking by the water, hand in hand. There was no pressure to perform, no pretending to be perfect. Just presence. Just peace. And one evening, as I sat on the small porch of that cottage, I pulled out an old photograph, the one taken during Olivia's wedding, right after I'd been struck, with a bandage on my head and Patrick beside me, holding my hand. I looked at it not with pain, but with power. That moment, that exact moment, was the turning point. The day I stopped shrinking. The day I stopped apologizing for wanting to be treated like I mattered. I haven't heard from Amanda. Her 5-year sentence still stands. No early release. No letters. No calls. And I'm okay with that. Olivia, as far as I know, tried to reclaim her reputation, but no one really welcomed her back. Her friends disappeared. Families stopped inviting her. And for the first time, she had to live in the shadow of her own decisions. As for me, I moved forward. Not with bitterness, but with boundaries. Not with resentment, but with resolve. I built a new life. With a man who saw me when no one else did. With a new sense of self that no longer depended on someone else's approval. And with the deep, certain belief that family isn't who shares your blood. It's who sees your truth, stands by it, and never asks you to shrink to fit their expectations. This isn't just a happy ending. It's a beginning of the life I was always meant to live. If this story touched your heart or made you think about your own journey, don't forget to like the video to support the message. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, feelings, or similar experiences in the comments below. Every voice matters here. And if you enjoy heartfelt, powerful stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes walking away from pain is the first step toward finding peace.